No? Well, hopefully the mic in the thing is working. Okay, so what I'm doing now is I made a video about a year ago doing green chili, and my good friend Sherman here helped me make this video. And so now I have Sherman helping me because I had some requests for other videos of food that we cook as a family. And one of those was for my pie. So today I'm going to make cherry pie, and it's a combination of the recipe in this Betty Crocker or Better Homes and Gardens that I got from my grandmother. It's a very old book, you can tell. And the double cherry pie recipe right there. You can see we've drawn on it, made notes here and there. Here's all the ingredients that you're going to need for the inside. You need 3 cups cherries or more, depending on how many cherries you like. 1 cup of juice, and that's the cherry juice from the can. I'll show you the can in a minute. Cook 1 1/4 cups of sugar. Let me see, of sugar, and 1/3 cup cornstarch with 1 cup of juice. That's different than what this recipe says over here, so that's what we've used. My stepmother and myself and my grandma kind of worked out this recipe here. And you cook it until it's glue-like, and then you fold the cherries in. Those are the notes I have to go with this recipe right here. Okay, and my pie crust is handmade as well. I'll show you that. And we also have food coloring for the sauce, the cherry pie sauce, because cherries from the can are not inherently red. I do not have a cherry tree like my grandmother did, so I use canned cherries, red tart cherries, pitted cherries. That's what I use, just a Kroger brand. So whatever brand you want to use, you can use fancy brand you want. I use about 3 to 4 cans of cherries. These are the cherries. You want to show the cherries there. They're draining. And as you can see, they're not that really bright, pretty red. They're just because they've been canned. Okay? So we'll add those in a little bit. We start out with our sugar. And my recipe says 1 1/4 cup sugar. We have to turn our oven on to 400 degrees to bake the pie. So I've turned on the oven to preheat 400 to bake the pie. I've got a pie plate for the pie. This is my antique pie plate from my grandma. It's deeper than most, so I put more cherries in my pie. This is a pan for making the sauce, spatula for stirring, sugar. Turn the pan on to medium heat. And we want to put the cornstarch and the sugar in first. I'm going to use a 1/4 cup measuring cup because it'll be easier. Okay, so we want 1 1/4, so that's 1 1/2 cup, 1/2 cup, 1 cup, and 1/4. 1 1/4 cup sugar. Now, when you're doing this, you want to put the sugar and the cornstarch in first. Here's my cornstarch. Argo cornstarch. Yay, Argo. Okay. And we want 1/3 of a cup of cornstarch. Get that fairly even on there. Put that in. Mix these together. I learned the hard way that you want to add these 2 things and mix them together well before you add the juice. You always add, in every recipe that I've seen has stated this, you add wet ingredients to the dry ingredients, not the other way around. You do not add dry ingredients to wet ingredients. It never says why this is. I just do it because that's what it says. I finally figured out why because I tried to do it the other way around and it didn't work. The reason you do it is it mixes better. If you put the wet in a little bit at a time, it mixes into the dry better so that you don't have little pockets of dry ingredients later on. Everything mixes up nice. We use white sugar because it'll hold the red color better when we add the red food coloring. Brown sugar tastes really nice, but then it comes out as a brownish color in your pie. So I add a little bit of the juice at a time, 1 cup of juice, and we get that mixed in so that the dry ingredients mix well with the wet. You don't add the wet all at once because you got to get those dry ingredients worked in. That looks pretty good, so I'll just go ahead and add the rest of the wet ingredients here. Later on, after this gets thick and gluey, we will add a tablespoon of butter and some red food coloring and fold the cherries in. I'm going to cook this on medium until it gets gluey, and you stir it every once in a while. So I guess I should stop stirring now. As that's starting, 2 crust pie dish, you're going to need 2 cups of flour, but you want to do it 1 pie crust at a time. So 1 cup of flour right here. You're saying, April, that is not a measuring cup. Yes, I know it is not a measuring cup. It is, but it is 1 cup. And let's shake that out here. Get some salt. It takes about 1/4 teaspoon of salt. I know how much that is in my hand. Put that in there. Mix it up. And then we want Crisco shortening. So 1 cup of flour, about 1/4 teaspoon of salt, and 1/3 cup of shortening. Scoop the shortening out. Smush it in with your finger to get rid of any air pockets in the measuring cup. Slide it. Whatever you don't use, just put back in the shortening container because we'll use it for the other pie crust, or we'll use it for tortillas later or something like that. I'm always using shortening for everything. You can keep the shortening in the fridge. That'll help it last longer. Get this all into our mixing bowl. Give a stir to our stuff as it starts to come up to heat and boil a little bit. The key to the pie filling is getting this nice and thick and gluey. There we go. Nice and thick and gluey. So that's what we're doing, getting it nice and thick and gluey. Okay. It's going to take a while because it's on a medium heat. You don't want it to burn. And now you'll notice I am not using a fork to cut my shortening into my flour. Okay. I've never used a fork. My grandma taught me how to do it this way. You kind of reach your hand in, grab the flour that's around the shortening, and squeeze it just gently to get it to meld with the shortening. And it kind of comes together with the shortening. You don't make a clenched fist like this. Just there's a hole in the middle that has the stuff pushing it together. And you work that in nicely. And you get it to where the flour and the shortening mix together in such a way that it starts to get grainy, like granules of dirt and rock. You know, not that hard, but it's got those kind of that grainy texture to it. You don't want it as fine a grain as sand. It's more clumped together like small pebbles. Now my stuff is boiling there. The nice thing is I haven't added flour to this yet, so I can stop and stir. Turn it down a little. I had it on medium-high. We don't want it on medium-high. The bubbles in it are still nice and loose. They're not thick yet. So we're doing okay. It's not thick. Still needs to cook some more. Okay, let's see. We want to get a little bit of flour out onto our surface here. We're going to roll the pie dough out onto. We want that because our pie dough is going to be a little bit moist after I add water to it. It's still not thick. Okay. When you mix the dry ingredient or the wet ingredients to our dry ingredients of our pie dough, you want to reach in and grab some of the ingredients and pour the water underneath the flour mixture, flour and shortening mixture we just made. And then you reach in and you kind of scoop and lift up from the bottom. Again, I'm not using a fork. I need to feel how wet this dough is getting. Depending on the moisture in the air, you can use less water or more water. Today is a moister day, so I'm guessing I'll use less water, but it takes about anywhere from 3 tablespoons to 6 tablespoons, depending on what the air feels like around you. The dough is going to start to come together a little bit. We like that. We want it to get to a point where it's sticky but doesn't stick to us, doesn't stick to your hand. If it's too dry, as you roll it, it'll break apart, and you can't fix that. You'll have to make a new batch of pie dough. So we get that all worked in. If it gets a little too sticky, we can work with that because we're rolling it out onto a floured surface, and that flour will incorporate itself with the dough, drying it out some. So it's better to have too sticky than too dry. Okay, and it is a little bit sticky, but that's okay. It's okay. We got our flour here. Spread it out a little bit on our surface that we're going to be rolling on. We'll get our dough out. We're still looking good there. It's bubbling away. I'll give it a stir in a second here. I make my dough into a ball, and then I pat it out flat like this before I put it on to my surface. And you can tell that the dough is still looks like dough. It's not red or pink or anything like that from the water, the juice that was in the water. Okay, and we push that out. We want to keep it in a circular form, so as we press this out, we kind of press it into a circle. Let me do a little stir here. See how we're doing. We're doing well. It's still not thick. It takes a while for that to thicken up. In the past, what I have done wrong with my pie filling is I never let it get thick enough before I added the cherries to it. Canned cherries will always have more moisture than fresh cherries when you add them to because they've soaked up all of that juice. Fresh cherries are very juicy as well, though, when they start to cook in the pie. So you have to make sure that your pie filling is gluey, thick enough to accommodate for the extra moisture in the cherries so that it doesn't get too thin. You don't want a thin pie filling. You want a thick pie filling because then it holds everything together. Okay. As I roll one way and then I roll another way, always rolling from the center out. That helps keep the dough in the form of a shape of a circle. As far as I know, I have not seen anybody make a square pie yet. I could be wrong. I have not seen a square pie yet. Okay. Now you say, how wide do I make it when I roll it out? You don't know. The best way to gauge that is take your pie plate and put it over the dough Can you pick it up and show us here, Sherman? Now, this is our pie plate, and the dough is here. And I account for the slope in the pie pan. So I need to widen this a little bit because there's only about an inch of space there. But that's how you do it. You lift your pie plate, put it on there. Does it look big enough? No. Let's roll it some more. So that's what we're going to do. Roll it out some more. As you lift your dough up to move it around, you always kind of fold it over your arm a little bit. Let it, that way it doesn't tear. And then we roll it out some more. Again, going from the center to the outer edges of your dough as you roll. Okay, we'll check it. That looks a lot better. See, there's more leeway there for the dough to fall into the middle. So that's good. We're going to get that. And then the way you do this is you pick up an edge of your dough and you fold it over your arm like that. You can fold it in half, put your pie plate down, and drape it over the edges. And to get it to fit into your pie plate, you lift from the edge and you push down into the pie plate out, unless you're adjusting where it's sitting. There you go. You don't want to stretch it from the middle out. You want to kind of condense it into the pie plate. It's okay that we have this extra hanging when we put our next crust on and seal the pie. Okay, you can poke the bottom if you want. I don't poke the bottom of my pie. I haven't for a long time. I used to, and I don't now, and my pies still turn out fine. So we have our bottom pie. We're waiting for our pie filling to finish cooking. I'm going to get everything ready for my next crust so that when this is all done, I can put it on top. So my next crust, I need another cup of flour. You can measure out an actual cup if you want. There's nothing that says you can't. I need some flour for my cooking surface. I need some salt. 1/4 teaspoon of salt in there. Mix that up a little bit. Oh, we're boiling good over here. Let me stir that again. It's starting to get thicker. The way it gets thick is as it boils down, the moisture is released into the air and there's less moisture in your pan. You can see that's the steam. And that's how things thicken. They boil down. It's still boiling pretty good, but it's not thick. It's still runny. You see that there? It's still runny. Comes off the spatula, it doesn't coat it really. So we're not ready. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and add my shortening. Scoop it into my cup here. Press it down in there. Get rid of those air pockets because you actually want 1/3 of a cup of shortening, not just under 1/3 of a cup. Just scoop that out. Put it in our bowl. Okay, and we're done with this. Put that over to the side. Let's stir this a little bit. It's trying to boil over here. You stir it occasionally, which means you don't stand here and stir constantly like this. No, you just come back to it every once in a while and look at it. No, it's still too runny. So we'll let it keep cooking. Blow on it a little bit. That helps pop the bubbles sometimes. Sometimes it doesn't. Ooh, a cooking tip that I just remembered from this pan trying to boil over. Did you know that if you take a wooden spoon and place it over the top of your boiling pasta pot, it will not boil over? I don't know why. I need to check that out. But it will not boil over. It disrupts the elasticity of the bubbles that are in there because the starch gets into the water, which gives the bubbles some starchiness, which makes the bubbles stick together more, kind of like they were a bubble blown from a bubble wand instead of blown by water. And so they stick more to each other, and that's why your water boils over. And by putting a wooden spoon over the top of it, that keeps that from happening. It breaks those bubbles so that they don't do that. That's why people add oil to their boiling pasta, so that the starch doesn't congeal in the bubbles and the molecules slide off of each other better. But then you get oil on your pasta after it's all cooked, and your sauce doesn't stick to your pasta that well. So, but that's just a little side observation here. Okay, got this all good, granularly. Let's put our water in here. I might need extra water for this one because I used most of my water in my last one, but we'll see. Got this going well here. Actually, this is sticking quite well. I don't think I'll use any extra water. Okay, it comes together as you mix it and forms a dough ball. See? Dough ball. It doesn't fall apart. It's a dough ball. And that's what we want. And it's sticky where it sticks to me a little bit where I've smushed it, but it's not too sticky. So if I come away, my hand doesn't keep collecting more dough. It's not that sticky. It's just a little bit sticky, and that's what we want. Mostly sticky, but not sticky enough to stick to your hand. Okay? Let me flour my surface. We're boiling over again, so let me catch that too. Now, if you don't feel confident enough to make your pie crust as you make your pie filling, that's fine. Make the pie filling first. Can you see who that is? Make the pie filling first. Does it not say? And then make your push off. Make your pie filling first, and then go ahead and make your pie crust after. It's okay for the cherries and the pie filling to sit and cool while you're making your pie crust. That is totally fine. Preferable in some instances. You're going to be cooking the pie again anyway in the oven, so that's okay. Now we got our dough ball here. I made it into a ball, and now I smush it out flat so it's a circle. And we keep going in that circular shape because even if they do make square pies, I don't have a square pie pan. I have a round one. So I'm going to make a round pie. You guys think I'm silly? I probably am, but that just makes life more fun. I'll try and boil over again here. It's starting to thicken up. Not a whole lot though, but it is starting to thicken. It's way too watery still. Okay, my rolling pin, roll it out, pick it up, turn it a quarter turn, because I have an oval, roll it out. Now we're starting to get more of a circle. Spread my flour a little bit more. Smush it out more. Now we don't need it as big of a circle for our pie top. as we did for our pie bottom, because the top just goes across the top. It doesn't go down into the bottom of the pie at all. But I still use my pie plate to measure, because that is the easiest measuring system available I have. And if that's what I have, that's what I'm going to use. If your edges of your pie crust get a little too thick for you, you can run your rolling pin around the edge in a circular motion to thin it down a little bit to where you like it. It won't hurt it at all. If you get a little crack in the edge and you don't like that, that's okay. Just pinch it back together. That's the beauty of dough. Okay, let's see. That looks to be the right size. When you are making your pie and you fill it, and then with the cherries, and then you put it in the oven, if you don't cut holes into the top crust, the steam is going to find a way to escape. And you don't want it to escape from the edges, because then it'll drip down and then you'll lose all your filling. You cut holes into the top of the pie crust. You can use a knife and just make slits so that the steam can escape and your pie doesn't go poof. I don't know that it will actually explode, but that steam will find a way to release itself. I don't use a knife. I use a cookie cutter. I have several cookie cutters. This one is the shape of a heart. This pie is for my father's birthday, so I'm using this. It's just prettier, I think, to use a cookie cutter for it than it is to just cut slits. And I have never mastered the ability to make a lattice work on top. It just doesn't work for me for some reason. So we'll do the hearts. They're fun. They're simple. It's a very small cookie cutter. See, it's small. It's perfect for this type of a job. Our bubbles are not boiling up so much anymore, so I think they're starting to thicken more. See, I think I'll leave it like, well, maybe I'll put a couple more in here. They're just fun. And then I go through with my butter knife and I lift them out because I'm going to do something after I put the pie on put the cover on the pie. And to do it, I have to have these little shapes all the way cut out. You can leave them there because that's a little seam that the steam can escape through. You don't have to take them out. Put my flour cup away. Just go in from the edge, lift, and they cut away nice and easy. Our stuff is boiling away still, and we got our top pie crust made. It's moist enough in the kitchen and outside today that I'm not going to have to put saran wrap over my pie crust while I wait for my filling to finish. If it's too dry of a day, you're going to want to do that. Put some saran wrap over the crust out while we finish up the filling. Oh yes, we're getting nice thickness here. Turn it up just a smidge now that I'm able to watch it more closely. Okay, I'm going to wash my hands off for the rest of this. Make sure it's good. It's important to wash your hands in between steps if you can, because you're touching cherries and pie crust. It all gets cooked together, but it's nice to be clean. I'm going to add some red food color to our pie filling. It's just generic red food coloring to make it that pretty red when you cut into the pie. That will seep into our cherries that are not that pretty red, so that it'll encompass the filling as well as the cherries. We will add a tablespoon of butter to our pie filling as well when we fold the cherries in. We're getting thicker here. This part does take a while, and when I first started making my pies, I did not have the patience to wait until this got gluey. And so some of my pies, after you cut into them, they kind of fell out of their nice pieces. If after I mix the cherries into the filling after it cooks, here, and I think that it's too liquidy, I can add a package of gelatin to that. And then while it cooks in the oven, it will thicken up and get more gelled in the middle, so that when you cut your piece of pie, it's that nice, pretty cut piece, and all the cherries and everything stay inside of the cut piece of pie. You don't want it to be too gelled. You're not serving Jell-O, you're serving pie. These are bubble thicker. You can see that the bubbles aren't wanting to pop really. They kind of stick to each other. They bubble. It's not really running off the spatula as quickly anymore. So we're getting close. We're getting close. Keep stirring it a little bit here and there. But like I said, we want it to be gluey. So we want it nice and thick. Like thicker than gravy, I would say. The consistency of glue. Tastes a lot better than glue, but the consistency of glue. It's coming along. It's going to be a couple minutes though. So let's see, what else can I talk about? Oh, so as I said before, it's 3 cups of cherries. But my pie dish is deeper. It's a deep 9-inch pie dish, so I'm going to add more cherries to it. If you like your pie to be more cherry, then put more cherries. If you like it to have more filling, then put less cherries in. It's up to you. It's not an absolute measurement. It does help a little bit because some of the juice in the cherries will enter into the pie filling. But it's not an absolute measurement. We're getting closer. My daughter would say, wait for it, wait for it. Something exciting is going to happen. Not quite yet. Give it a couple extra minutes here. I use Crisco shortening. You can use butter in your pie crust. It's the same thing. Has different flavor than shortening. Shortening allows the flavor of the pie filling to come through, and it's a light flaky crust. It has a different consistency than butter, so you'll find some differences there if you choose to use butter instead of Crisco. Again, it's only 1/3 of a cup in that pie filling or pie crust. You want to make one crust at a time. The bottom crust, do the filling, then make the pie crust, top crust. And you want to put slits or some kind of venting into that crust so that it can breathe when it's in the oven. Another tip I can give you for cooking of pies is your pie will bubble over if you leave it in the oven for the amount of time it's supposed to be in there. Hopefully, the edges of your pie crust keep all the juices contained so that it's just kind of puddled on the pie crust instead of runneth over into your oven. But in case it should want to runneth over into your oven, you don't want to have to clean up that nasty mess in your oven. So get out your tin foil and get a sheet, just one sheet of tin foil the width of your oven, and put it underneath your pie as you're baking it. And that way any bubbling over gets caught onto the tin foil and doesn't get your oven dirty. You'll see in some recipes that it says to bake your pie on a cookie sheet. That's why. It's so that it catches all of the run over. And I don't like to have to cook the cookie, clean the cookie sheet afterwards. And it kind of warps your cookie sheets sometimes, so I don't like to do it that way. Look at that. We're nice, getting nice and thick here. Oh, that is nice. Sticking to the spatula. See how my spatula stays red? The bubbles stay there. Comes off, and it's kind of glopping off. It's not really running off. So it's more of a glop. That is nice. Give it just one more minute here. Then we'll put everything together. Pop it in the oven and make a nice cherry pie that we can then eat later for dessert. Yummo. Okay. Just a little bit longer. You really want it to get nice and thick. If you want that pie filling to stay inside the pie after you cut it, you want it to get really thick. You're going to think, oh, that's getting too thick, or I'm burning it, or whatever. And you're not. You're just getting it to be perfect. You know, stir it more here at the end because the heat gets everything to congeal together, and where it's hot, it will congeal more than where it's not. So if you keep it stirred, then the heat stays even in the pan, and it congeals evenly. And that looks pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and turn it off. Remove it from the heat. I'm just going to move it over to the side here because I don't have room on my counter. Get my cherries that I have drained nicely. Put them in my pan here. And they go in until it looks like I have enough. Let's see. And I like lots of cherries in my pie. Kind of fold those in to the cherry juice. See how it's all sticky? That's a good thing. You want it to be all sticky. Okay, and you need a tablespoon of butter to go in there because that helps everything. And you fold all of this in there. And I'm going to put my other cherries into my pie plate. Look at that, and the juices of the cherries mixed together with the juice of our pie filling. We pull our pie across here. Put all of this in. Now my pie is not going to be the pretty red of most cherry pies. And you're going to say, why? Why is it not going to be? Because I forgot to put the red food coloring in. But that's okay. It'll taste the same. The red food coloring adds no flavor whatsoever. It just helps with making it look pretty, the presentation of your pie. Mix out here. All right. And my cherries were very cold compared to my filling, so it kind of candied a little bit. But while it cooks in the oven, it will get all mixed up good in there. Okay. When we put our top on, we want the top of our pie to stick to the bottom of our pie, making a seal. So to do that, I have milk. And we wet the bottom pie like this. And it's okay if it runs into the pie a little bit. It's not going to hurt anything. And you want to get the outside all nice and moist like this, because you want the two pieces of dough to stick to each other and form a seal. You want to go get it all nice and wet down here. And you're saying, why are you pulling that milk out to the edges of that pie crust that's hanging over? Well, you'll see, because I want this to seal well. I'm going to fold those edges over the edges of my top crust. Now we do the same as we did before. We fold our pie crust in half. We center it as best we can. It's never going to be perfect because it's a homemade pie. And that's what we like about it, is it's not perfect. You can lift it a little bit to adjust it, because you can see my cuts here are off the wrong way. And it's okay if it breaks. That's fine. It's okay. It's not perfect. It's homemade. Homemade means made with love. There we go. Okay, now let's set this over here so I don't burn myself on that hot burner. And then we roll this up, pulling that outer crust up over the top crust. Okay, and we get that so that it seals nice. And if the inside should happen to decide that it's going to boil over a little bit, it won't run through a seam on the side here. It will go through the vents in the middle. And this outer seam helps with that. If we lift this up, then there's nowhere, it's sealed well. There's nowhere for those runneth overs to go. And it looks kind of ropey. It's not so pretty yet. You just wait. It'll get there. Okay. We made kind of a rope on the edge here. And you're saying, oh, that doesn't look like, that's not that pretty. That's not what pie's supposed to look like there with a rope over the edge. Well, some people actually like the rope look, because my grandma and some other people have been able to twist the rope to make it look like a twist all the way around. I have never mastered that. However, I have mastered the fluting. And you don't need a special kitchen gadget to make fluting on your pie. You need 3 fingers. You take 2 fingers and you push in, and 1 finger in between the 2 fingers and pull out. You want to zoom in on this? So you take your 2 fingers and you push in, and your 1 finger on the inside and pull out. And that's how you flute a pie. You need a special kitchen gadget. You just need your fingers. This also helps seal this pie together, these two pieces that are rolled together and folded over. See, now I'm getting this nice fluting of the edge of my pie. Put that together like that. We'll go all the way around. We're here, like this, all the way, all the way, all the way. Okay, we want the top of our pie to be pretty brown. So, some people say use egg yolk. I just use the rest of the milk. I mean, I have a whole bowl full of it here. After it's been brushed onto a pie crust, it has flour and stuff in it, so nobody's going to want to drink it. You know, you don't want to waste it. So you brush it on top of the pie. Now, I just brushed onto the flat part of my pie because the outer edge, the fluted edge, sticks up and it'll cook faster than this inner part of my pie. So it'll get a nice brown crust on it without the help of the milk. The other nice thing about this milk coating is I can then take my heart pieces and glue them over the little pieces of the little heart cutouts. And then I have an interesting little design there on my pie. So if I cut the heart out this way, when I glue the top back on, it's this way, and it leaves vents, 3 vents on the sides there. So the point goes into the middle like that. I do not recoat these with milk. I never have. You can see my pie is kind of all off to one side. That's okay. It's homemade. The people who eat it won't care. The fact that you make pie is what they'll care about, because you love them enough that you made them a homemade pie. And this is what our pie looks before we put it into our oven. And we put it into our oven at 400 degrees. There we go. My tinfoil on the bottom there to catch the drips. For 45 to 55 minutes. I know my pies, I know my oven. So for me, it's 55 minutes. For you, go ahead and do it 45. Check it. Might need another 10 minutes there. And then when the pie is all done and you pull it out, it looks like this beautiful pie right here that I made for my cameraman Sherman, because he won't be here when we eat the other one. And, you know, he deserves thanks for helping me out. But it's nice and golden brown. See? You can see over here it had a little bit of a steam over. It's still fluted on the edges, and that's a beautiful pie. It's a little bright. Let's see if we can get it to look less bright. Nope, can't get it to look less bright. But there you go. Beautiful pie. Thank you for watching, and our next episode will be a request from another family member of mine who has asked me to show you how to make tortillas, homemade tortillas. So that should come up in about a week. I'll make homemade tortillas. I'll see you here then. Thank you.